sister who failed to evacuate her, trying to escape the city now overrun by the undead. They made a simple time bomb and used its sound to attract the surrounding zombies. At the moment the countdown ended, the horde turned to blood and flesh, disappearing into the air. The brother and sister then made their way to a nearby parking lot, hoping to find a vehicle, but after just a few seconds apart, the sister returned to find her brother's head severed from his body. The radiation didn't kill the zombies. Instead, it caused them to evolve. Some of these evolved zombies even gained intelligence, becoming higher-level threats. Soon after, a secret military mission was issued to a base hidden in the desert. An abandoned town was home to a CDC-run vaccine lab. The Alpha Team's mission was simple: infiltrate quietly, retrieve the prototype vaccine, and evacuate. It sounded like an easy task, but the military had discovered that the zombies in the town had mutated, greatly enhancing both their strength and speed. Team leader, codenamed Boss, wanted to know why the high command didn't just send in a heavily armed military force. The answer was that the vaccine was experimental, and the higher-ups didn't want to risk wasting valuable troops. So they needed Alpha Team to infiltrate quietly like birds. They were equipped with newly developed combat suits and helmets that could block all viruses and provide absolute soundproofing. With the helmets on, even if they sang loudly, only those with the same helmets would be able to hear them. 5 Special Forces operatives parachuted from a plane and silently entered the town center. Just like birds, drones quickly took to the sky, monitoring every move. The streets were eerily quiet, with only some charred bodies scattered about. No zombies in sight. They quickly reached the CDC building, and the situation was the same as the streets: no zombies, just bodies. The team successfully located the prototype vaccine inside the lab. The mission was going smoothly. They just needed to safely reach the evacuation point. Just as the 5 were exiting the building, the lookout noticed zombies rapidly heading toward them. Their speed was incredible, and they appeared in Alpha Team's sight in no time. Everyone was puzzled. How did the zombies find them? They hadn't made any noise. As the horde drew closer, the leader ordered the team to open fire. Bullets rained down, but they did not stop the zombies. They kept coming closer, and the battle turned into a close-quarters fight. At that moment, the team realized the terrifying power of these mutated zombies. As time passed, one of the team members was bitten. Suddenly, different gunshots rang out, and a masked figure appeared, shooting the last zombie and saving the team, which took them by surprise. But they had no time to ask questions. Under the stranger's guidance, they quickly began retreating, unaware that a hunter in the shadows was watching their every move. This stranger's name was Goodman. Her brother had been killed by mutated zombies weeks ago. The reason she intervened was that she wanted to escape this hellish city with Alpha Team. With her friend on the verge of becoming a zombie, Boss pulled up the prototype vaccine. Though unsure of its effectiveness, it offered at least a 50% chance. At that moment, everyone was tense, hoping the vaccine would stop the virus. But soon, a team member lost all vital signs, leaving everyone devastated. Then, in a miraculous moment, the dead team member revived, not as a zombie. This unbelievable event couldn't be explained, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that the vaccine worked. They prepared to leave, but a dispute arose over whether or not to take Goodman with them. Some believed she was just a burden, which amused Goodman. She had been surviving in this place for over a month, while these men had only just arrived a few hours ago. Their ammo nearly spent. In the face of Goodman's sarcasm, the men fell silent. Time was running out. The evacuation helicopter would leave in 5 hours, and at Goodman's request, they set up explosive charges on a street before leaving. At a crucial moment, these devices can draw all the zombies away from the surrounding area. Soon, the group arrived at an underground tunnel. If all went as planned, they could reach the outskirts of the town directly. So, the 6 of them split into 3 teams to find the best route. Aside from a few scattered zombies below, they encountered no significant danger. On the other side, Goodman and the sniper had already reached the top of the tunnel. At that moment, a figure flashed outside the door. The sniper left Goodman alone to investigate, but all she found was an empty, silent street. The next moment, a figure ran across the street, and the sniper, confident in his abilities, told Goodman briefly and chased after him. Soon after, the sniper quietly returned, unaware that the mutated zombie's intelligence had surpassed his own. Goodman, terrified, looked toward the source of the sound, but saw nothing. The next moment, the sniper's helmet appeared at the door, and a wave of fear swept over Goodman. Just then, the rest of the team emerged from the tunnel. but it was too late. The sniper had already become the zombies' meal. Unable to even turn into one of them, there was no time for mourning. The team leader pressed the detonation button, and the flames lit up the dark night sky. The city echoed with the continuous roars of the undead. After drawing the horde away, they reached a high tower. For some unknown reason, the team had lost communication with the base and hoped to find a signal from the top to report everything happening there. The 5 of them split into 2 groups again, with the communications officer and a teammate heading to the top of the tower and quickly establishing contact with the base. Just then, a sharp, ear-piercing noise came through the communications officer's helmet, and he instantly collapsed to the ground. When he came to and stood up again, he found that his teammate had already been captured by a massive monster. He quickly raised his weapon and fired relentlessly, but in the next moment, the monster threw the person toward him. The violent impact sent the communications officer plummeting from the height, and along with him fell a severed piecer's finger. At that moment, the communications officer sat up again, thankful for the protection of his combat suit, although his body ached as if it had been hit by a truck. The good news was that his internal organs and bones had not suffered major damage. Looking at the severed finger, the communications officer was certain it had been left by the monster. Soon after, Goodman and another team member reached the top floor, but both the man and the monster were already gone. In a silent corner, the monster was savoring its new meal. As the creature continued to feed, the severed finger regenerated. The remaining 4 made their way to the parking lot, where they found Goodman's brother's body and discovered a car key in his bag. The previous plan had failed, so they moved to Goodman's brother's garage and brought the car battery. If all went well, the 4 of them could escape the cursed city in the car. After a countdown of 3, the team leader opened the large door. Just as Goodman started the car, a zombie leaped down from the roof. The car immediately stalled after the collision, and the others quickly fired. But the zombie didn't linger. After achieving its goal, it ran toward the distance. The team leader quickly rushed forward to close the iron door. Meanwhile, Goodman opened the exit gate, and a massive horde of zombies charged toward them. Just as Goodman closed the gate, the iron door behind them was opened by the zombies. The room was filled with the constant roar of zombies, but none appeared in front of them. Under the team leader's command, they quickly formed a search pattern, unaware that zombies in the shadows were watching their every move. The next moment, all 4 were attacked by zombies at once. Though the team leader managed to deal with the attacking zombies, he was bitten in the process. After a fierce battle, silence returned to the surroundings. Goodman quickly retrieved the vaccine and injected it into the team leader's body. At that moment, they were left with only 1 vaccine. After taking a short rest, the 4 began searching for an escape route. The communications officer opened the door, and there were no zombies in sight on the street. He cautiously retreated and reported this to the team leader. At that moment, a sharp pain swept over the entire body as the communications officer was attacked by a monster. The nearest teammate rushed forward, continuously pulling the trigger. The wounded monster let out an enraged roar, its sharp sound assaulting the eardrums of the remaining 3. They instantly lost their ability to resist, and it wasn't until the sound faded that their consciousness began to clear. But the communications officer had already lost his life. At that moment, the team leader finally realized his team had become the prey of the monsters the moment they entered this place. To survive, they had to take the fight to the monsters. They hid in the shadows, using the communications officer's blood to attract the monster and planted explosives on the body. Once the leader pressed the button, the monster would turn into a bloody mess. The leader and the last remaining team member continued their search ahead. Goodman hid in the shadows, but this time, the monster didn't drag the body away. Instead, it appeared behind the remaining teammate. The next moment, screams of agony came through the radio. The leader quickly rushed to the teammate's location, shouting for him to hold on. But by the time the leader arrived, the teammate was gravely wounded. Knowing that he couldn't leave here alive, the teammate decided to stay behind and asked the leader for the remote control. It was the best option. As the 2 figures slowly disappeared, another monster emerged from the shadows. When the teammate saw it, he smiled and pressed the detonator, but the expected explosion never came. The 2 who had left the building stopped in their tracks. The next moment, the monster slowly walked out. Seeing this, Goodman quickly ran off into the distance, leaving the leader standing motionless. The leader's body was pierced by the monster's blade-like tongue. Just then, as Goodman pulled away, he began firing wildly. The wounded monster quickly turned and fled into the distance. When the leader regained consciousness, he found himself in Goodman's safe house. Upon realizing he had been unconscious for so long, he immediately sat up. If they missed the helicopter, they would lose their only chance to escape. With Goodman's urging, he gradually calmed down and began to think seriously about their predicament. At that moment, the leader remembered a detail. Why hadn't the monster fed on the communications officer's blood, or his own? The only common factor between them was that they both had been vaccinated. With this in mind, he quickly came to a conclusion. It wasn't that the monster didn't like blood, it just didn't like blood that had been vaccinated. So, he and Goodman began to devise a plan. There was only one entrance and exit to the room, so they would open the door, turn off all the lights, and use their blood to lure the monster in. Once the monster entered the room, they would attack. Soon after, a massive figure appeared in front of the door. Everything was ready, but they still underestimated the monster. The monster immediately attacked Goodman, who was hidden in the dark. The leader rushed out, and bullets tore through the monster's body. But even the continuous barrage didn't cause significant harm to the monster. At that moment, Goodman turned on the lights, and the monster's painful screams filled the room. The next instant, the shrill noise returned. The room's power was instantly destroyed. The final bullet, as it struck the monster, also pierced a nearby gas canister. Then, the leader was thrown backward. Time ticked away, and just as the monster was about to devour Goodman, the leader charged forward with a blade. Though he successfully saved Goodman, he immediately collapsed to the ground. The monster roared again, and as the leader's eardrums almost shattered, he removed his helmet. Meanwhile, Goodman hurriedly put on a gas mask. Seeing the leader on the verge of death, Goodman finally grabbed the vaccine from the ground. Seeing this, the leader activated the powerful light on his arm. At the moment, the monster lost its ability to resist. The leader grabbed the vaccine from the ground, but then the monster's tongue wrapped around him. In a moment of desperation, the leader caught the vaccine with his left hand and threw it into the monster's body. However, the syringe wouldn't automatically inject. At that moment, the leader gathered all his strength in his head and slammed into the syringe. The monster lost its ability to resist completely. The leader and Goodman escaped just before the explosion. Flames shot into the sky, the darkness faded, and warm sunlight once again bathed the earth. Though they survived, they lost the vaccine. Similar death zones existed all over the earth. The two of them had escaped by luck. But how would they survive now?